Because FalleN was always overrated as an AWPer, even in his prime in 2016 and 2017, because he wasn't like a Guardian Kenny's traditional AWPer. He wasn't a guy you set the whole team up around. He wasn't a guy on CT who holds the best CT spot and just plays back and has all his teammates peeking for him and flashing for him, and then he's just cleaning up people coming in the side. That was never FalleN's game. What made it amazing is how he IGL'd as an AWPer. That was the thing, the other way around, how he AWP'd as an IGL. It was what he added to his IGLing that made it amazing that he was an AWPer. Because he was not like an elite talent in terms of raw skill in CSGO for my money. I mean, it's the latter part of his career, CSGO. The thing is, in 1.6, he was quite a skilled player. He was a rising talent. But it's when he used to do stuff like those aggro CT pushes, because he had people like FNX, Taco. These players are going to hold the fort down, going to hold spots, going to comp properly. So you can do these aggro pushes where it doesn't matter if you die because you're not the main star player. It's all set up around. And if you do the aggro pushes, you get info, you get an early pick. So you set the T's back a little bit. You can rotate off because you're smart. You're the IGL. You're going to com better than everyone else when you get the info. Then obviously, on T side especially, but sometimes on CT if they went to the other side, he was also obviously really good at late round closeout clutches. If he's either rotating in a CT or he's late onto the site, he's not part of the entry pack, or he's at the back of the entry pack. When you put him in a 1v1, a 1v2, a 2v2, that's where he shines, right? The problem is, his main strength hasn't been hitting crazy shots, even in those scenarios, for years. Instead, it was being clutch, and most importantly, because of his rep, people seeing the name FalleN and shitting themselves. What they do against great clutch players, even Shock still gets this, is they play against you and they know that you're amazing at clutches, so they second and triple and quadruple guess themselves, and then they end up in scenarios where it's like they're doing just the wrong thing. If they just played with their first instinct, maybe they could have beaten you straight up in a 1v1 duel. I heard, and I said this before, everyone made it sound like it's just a legend keeping playing. I like it when legends stay in the game. Don't retire until you want to. But he was taking up money and spots that much, much better players would have been able to have. And that's gross, in my opinion, when the old just feed on the young, when they're not up to their best anymore. And the young guy, it's his time now. I heard he had an insane contract. He was on really good money in that team to come last place and second to last in tournaments and to just be a bomb and never go anywhere close to the top 8 of a major. He was getting big, big money to do that, guys. There's way better IGLs and players that were on half, a third, a quarter of his salary. So he was getting big money, and I heard he was allowed his own personal sponsors. He could just do conflicting sponsors in the same market as Fury, as Imperial if he wanted. That is gross. That means you're not even getting all the marketing value out of him because he's doing his own thing, making his own money on the side, because that's who he's been for many, many years now, if you've been listening to people like Richard Lewis. Now, I don't know if the Fury deals like that, but I'd almost imagine it has to be, if you know how this... He's a very good businessman in terms of making money, very cynical, but a very good businessman. I even think that's one of the reasons his IGL game dropped off. This Furia buyout that is reported is fucking absurd. It's one of the worst buyouts of all time. If that figure is like $700,000, is at all accurate. That is actually obscene because, look, no CSGO player in terms of financials could ever be worth anything close to that, including, by the way, Simple, because they don't generate anything close to that back. You're doing it right now relative to the market. Like, I think to a lot of fans and young people who are illiterate or don't read or don't think and use critical thinking capabilities, I think they think overrated means I think he is bad. And they think underrated means I think he is good. Even though, by the way, there could be a player who's actually amazing who's overrated. I actually thought Zima was overrated for quite a many years. Meanwhile, there could be a player who's actually bad who's underrated. Like, you know what? In a way, Drop's certainly not an elite player, but I thought he was underrated at times and Fury and did do his job. I think this player's out. Stiko, another classic example, right? Now, in the same way as those don't mean I think he is good or bad, it also doesn't mean when you say he's overrated that nobody says he's bad. That's not what it means. Same as underrated doesn't mean nobody says he's good. Because the other thing people do is they take a statement like that that's about a group consensus, an aggregate of opinions out there and what is generally thought. And they go, well, I've never said that, or I never read anyone say that, or everyone knows that, or everyone, and then they just try to do their own version, or they take a single one, like the particular instead of the general. Like, well, I don't think, well, that's irrelevant. It's whether overall the rating, doesn't matter what fucking you think. Billy Nobody on the Twitter, just replying to me on the Free Bird app, raging off your tits because I'm calling out your God. By the way, what a shit way to use the human brain function to worship, to just fucking pour adoration over someone who plays video games. Not even once, mate. Grow the fuck up. None of those players could have stats like FalleN did in 2017 and actually like win 8 tournaments. That would be insane. They win 8 tournaments in their absolute best years, the absolute best player in the world, and the best player in their team, MVPs all day long. That's what happens. That's how you know those players are the truly great, best ever individual players and AWPers. And this guy was a great in-game leader for a couple of years and an overrated player even at his peak. Now, he did in these years, because he had good fragging still, bring a clutch factor. He was one of the best clutch players of anyone actually in the world, which definitely got in people's heads. And his in-game leading was really good. But those two factors made people overrate his actual play in his very best individual years. Simple was a better player at majors. Nico was a better player overall. If you're just taking one raw player in a draft, I'm taking Nico ahead of fucking FalleN. Shocks, likewise, just a great all-around player. He was even in-game leading himself, by the way, as one of the best players in the world. Device, yeah, it wasn't like his best year, and late in games he might choke a bit, but he was also carrying them to that point in games. It was a monster this year, like I just showed you, and a big carry most of the time. So my biggest problem with FalleN is this. Even in these years, he's not a pure AWP carry. His style was more about getting info by scouting out early because he has people behind him who can play spots and play angles. And he has people like Cold Zero who can get you kills otherwise, and Fur who can do a distraction. He's about getting an early pick, then falling back, then playing off the man advantage. He's about winning clutches. This is all nice stuff separately, but the monster thing that a star AWPer does is just kill people with the AWP all day long. Is sit in a spot and lock down on CT. On T-side, you play the whole game around them getting their pick and then them closing it. That's not what you're doing with this guy, and that's not what he was even trying to do. It's why I actually think the in-game leader used the player FalleN very well, but the player FalleN got overrated as a result. You compare him to those other AWPers, he isn't a star like them. He isn't the one that you take to start and build your whole team around. They all are.
Okay. I mean, individually, that's another thing that's also obviously been famous about you, is that even in periods when the numbers aren't as great for you, people know you can still win a big clutch round, or if it's a really tough game. Did you do something to your mentality in that sense? Were you always like this as a player?
Well, I think everyone being confident and we having this boost in our mentality, it helped me a lot, just because it was more natural to play and the team had a great chemistry and things were easier for me to call, and I could focus a lot on my game. And I can't really put into words what changed for me, but things started going my way as well. I think at that time I had a great freedom on how the game was being played. Like, I really knew the strategies people were using. I really knew the timings they like to do. And I think teams were very scared to play against us as well. And you can see, like, when you see Australians playing other teams nowadays, it's kind of the same thing. Like, things that happens against Australians, normally they wouldn't do the same mistakes against other teams because they're doubling themselves too much. So when you are this team that is a little bit above all the others, it tends to go easier to on your way somehow, just because people keep making mistakes, they keep doubling themselves, or Australis is like, I can judge for Australis now because I kind of feel the same thing when we were playing back in the days. It's so much confidence that a single gap you leave to them, a single mistake you do, they're gonna exploit that. Like, they're gonna abuse it because they feel like even if this doesn't work, someone else is going to pick up for them and win the round. So they're always trying something. And of course, they're super smart in game as well. So I don't know exactly what went well for me, but I just think I had a very good read on how the game was being played. And nowadays, I think this read changed a little bit because people are playing a little bit faster. When things like FaZe came up, they kind of changed the meta a little bit. And now Australia's changed it up again. So
FalleN with his opping, he wasn't, ever like, there at times he was the best opper, but it's not a style that we see replicated by very many people. His style of opping was so impactful because he was aggressive, because he could peek very fast angles and still get away. His mobility was very, very good. He's not even making those kinds of plays. So all of a sudden you have these two players who give so much. You're not playing in the identity that got you to the top anymore. You're not doing like the hard work kind of grind out strategic style anymore. So you've gone away from so many things that have made you strong in the past. I just think they have a massive identity crisis, and because of that, everyone's confidence is shattered. And the longer that goes on, again, it's like the rosters that we're seeing with Cloud9 and Optic before that, and even FaZe to a certain degree. It's just like one of those things that it's just rot from the inside. And they don't. I think they have the major. I think if this team doesn't do something by the major, we're gonna have to see another change.
Yeah, one of the problems I see with this team is that I kind of agree with you. Like, most experts I've talked to, Moses, are of the philosophy in MIBR that actually one of the flaws of the team is that for some reason they seem to think FalleN and Fur can be kind of like supportive cast elements, and that they're going to kind of like let other people it's like, to me, they're going to have to be
key elements. Like they have to be like the old players they were, maybe in a different setup, maybe a different type of team. But that's actually the part that I see is really worrying, because I agree, like if you look on paper, this is a fire lineup and some really good players here. But the problem is, who's going to be the person who takes a back seat? Because I actually think the one aspect that a lot of pro players have never gotten to experience, because it's very rare you have a lineup like this with everyone who used to be a star player. What every pro player thinks the worst scenario in the world is to be like Nico and Mouse Sports. Like, I'm doing really well, but my team loses. No, the worst scenario ever is that you're in a team with loads of good players who's expected to win, you do badly, and you're not even getting to play like a star player with all the spots you want. That is the worst scenario in Counter-Strike. Because now you're just like, it's the worst of all worlds,
So Sticko, essentially. Sticko and Mouse Sports.
In a sense, yeah. When the team had its problems this year, he basically sort of admitted, like, yeah, some of it's on me, and I've kind of like lost my identity. Like, I don't know how we should play. Like, we can't clearly do what we used to do 4 years ago. But at the same time, like, I've got some of the same players. How do I make them play in a different side? Like, he kind of didn't know where he was at. And a leader like that, I've found typically, there's a reason why we talk about like systems and philosophies. Normally you want that guy to really think he's got the best way to play in the whole game. And he's like, that's why the other guys look to him and go, like, yes, this is the person we'll follow. He's got the brains for it, When he was a leader under you, was he still like prime FalleN to you in terms of an in-game leader? What was his strengths at the time, do you think?
For me, the one thing that was super obvious and super clear is FalleN, because there was a while where he wasn't like opping, or was he gonna op and something like that. And for me, it was obvious that if FalleN is gonna be a good in-game leader, he needs to op as well, and he needs to play well. Like, it's connected with him. If he's opping good, he's gonna call good, and vice versa, right? And for me, it was just like giving him, trying to get him to be confident about both, especially about opping at first, because then you see like some of his calls are just on the spot, because he knows what he can do with the op, like to open up a round. And then he just tells he says like, he literally says, I'm gonna go Ivy, I'm gonna kill this guy. After 2 seconds after that, like flash out, mid and just swing mid, for example, right? And everything would happen like the way that he says, and it would win an easy round. And some of the things that he was able to come up with on the fly, some of the mid-round calls, where he would, beta rotation and have one guy in place to punish that rotation, like that stuff was really, really high level. And I think whether it was just Prime, for me it looked like Prime. I think it's just compared to the Prime, the opposition was better, right? So It wasn't as dominant in terms of results as you would expect. But for me, I think the calling was on a very high level. I think he played like really well individually for the most part. Like, obviously you have games up and down and tournaments up and down and stuff like that. But I was more than happy with his performance as a caller and as an opera.
As they were getting with rifles, he'd have these specific games where when you have Cold-Zero consistently being very good, and you have First sometimes coming with big games, and you have an FNX winning clutches for you, then when FalleN comes in with this ability to have an impact with the weapon and tactically use it, now you're going to win big maps, as they've done. Now you're going to win series. Now you're going to be one of the best teams in the world and challenge for trophies. So you look at it, this guy's made a complete team. And remember, he recruited all these guys. He had Fur in the early days and knew to build the team around him. He got in Cold-Zero later on and understood how to use him in the team. He then got in FNX, an old guy who'd just been okay since before then, and was able to fill this role of the veteran, smart guy, winning the clutches and playing within this system. And all the roles make sense within the team. FalleN is just the complete package as an in-game leader. He's got the tactics, fantastic tactics, constantly innovative, but have a baseline level where he can run the same ones over and over again if they're working. He can read the opponents in the game and shift up his tactics. So if he's playing a very skilled team who's breaking something down, they don't always go to the same default setup. He's great at recruiting talent. He now has skills himself that are legit to show off. One of the best fraggers of all the in-game leaders in the world right now. And he's also, crucially, this is what makes him the complete package. He's shown leadership in terms of motivation, in terms of maintaining the morale of his troops. Because we've had great leaders like a God B who weren't necessarily always in control of the egos within the team. We've had great leaders like Sean Gares, but who couldn't actually keep people in track and motivate them always to spend less time pogging, spend more time practicing, spend less time on the stream, spend more time in the server watching demos. He couldn't always manage that side. He was the tactician more than that. FalleN is just like, this guy
you've just got to respect him. He's a man's man. He's a guy who just leads from the front, and he's got all these people in place, and he's taught all these guys, and he's got them all to buy into his system. They're all on board with him, and he's just accomplished something fantastic, really. I feel like now the supportive style, this is where FalleN could be very valuable, because as an AWPer, he's not going to be that dominant AWPer. As an individual player, he doesn't look like he's going to be a star. But as someone who has played supportive before he took up the AWP, as someone who's one of the smartest players in the game, and who now has the firepower elsewhere, he can definitely play a supportive role and play it well. And he's got Taco there, a guy who, again, jack of all trades, can do it all. And this is the unit of the team that I see existing now and being a potential champion.
I don't forget the people that support me. And in the case of this video, that would be Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Nicky, Tosh, Toucan, and you know who I'm always going to give the biggest shout out to, my boy Jerky's Minion. Do you want to ask a question for my video AMA? Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to find out who the next guest is on one of my interviews that I've already recorded but not yet released. Or maybe you want to take part in one of those fabled long-form discussions where you get to decide the topics. Well, if any of those perks or others tickle your fancy, simply click on the Patreon link in the description box below and put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today.